Hello everyone and welcome back to the Kohi game engine series. This video is a bit different from most of them in that it is what I'm going to consider a appendix to another video in this series. So this is actually going to be called video 29.1 because there was an issue discovered in that video that needs fixing. And so we are actually going to cut a separate video for this because it warrants it. So this is actually going to be a super short video. A few of you had reported that you were basically following along to the series just fine right up until towards the end of video 29. So a number of you were getting this error right around, I think it was either this fence weight or our other fence weight here. And basically what was happening was it would time out, so this number of nanoseconds would expire, and then it was losing the device because it was trying to do something that not all devices were technically capable of. And so what the issue was with that is in our object shader, in our global update state, we are first binding the descriptor sets, and then we are performing an update on those descriptor sets. And this wound up actually being part of the problem. And so there were actually a couple things that I adjusted here to fix this. But the long and short of it is not all GPUs are actually capable of performing an update after a bind. Now, mine is capable of doing that, which is the reason I didn't run into this issue. And it seems that most people's has been capable of doing this, but a number of you have GPUs that are relatively new GPUs that aren't capable of doing this. And how I figured this out was I ran the VK info on my own machine, and I had one of the members who was following along with the series do the same thing and provide that file to me. And I basically ran this diff and came across this descriptor binding uniform buffer update after bind. And you'll see that this over here is Wall. That's the person who provided this to me. This is his file, and this is mine. So you'll see over here that this is true, meaning my card supports it, and in his case it is false. And this is the crux of the issue right here, right? So there are a lot of differences here. Most of these don't really matter or aren't really relevant. For those of you who are wondering how I got this, by the way, this is a program called WinMerge. I suggest you get at least somewhat familiar with it. It's a very good program for looking at diffs. One thing you'll need to note in here is I have the white spaces in the diff turned off so that it doesn't show me every single space or tab difference. It only shows me the relative or the relevant difference for each line. But anyway, so I basically combed through this diff line by line until I got to the section that was going over hardware features. And that was where I ultimately found this difference. And so this is actually what the issue was. So when we fixed this, it fixed the problem, and I had the guys test it, and they said that it seems to be working for them just fine. So that change was a couple of different things. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and put up a diff of this on GitHub, and I'll go ahead and merge this in after this video. Tried a couple of things here, as you can see from the commit list, but most important part of this is basically we swapped the order of operations here. So this bind descriptor sets, instead of going first, right? So we basically just took all this code here and put the descriptor sets at the end of that. So we moved all of this code here to before it. And then the other portion of this is I put a little bit of logic in here because some of you called this out, and it is a good point, where we actually store on the shader per image index whether or not the descriptor has been updated, right? Because we really only need to do this once. So we check to see first if the descriptor has been updated for that particular index, and if it has not, then we go ahead and perform that update, and then we go ahead and flip that flag to true. and then afterwards we go ahead and bind the descriptor sets. So for those of you who are interested, this descriptor updated is stored here in the Vulkan types INL, and we just added that to the shader object itself. So one other change that I wanted to bring up really quickly as well that I did here is I actually created this buffer to be large enough to hold 3 of these, 1 per frame, so that they don't necessarily collide with one another or potentially be overwritten. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue, but I can see how it could eventually be an issue. So we have 1 UBO per frame here. So this Vulkan buffer create now creates enough for 3 of these objects. And then likewise down here in the offset, the only change that we've made here is instead of like what we had before here where the offset was just 0, it is now the size of global uniform object times the image index. So it'll be, for the first one, it'll be 0. For the second one, it'll be 1 of these forward, and for the third one, it'll be 2 of those forward in that memory block. Okay, so this is just another sort of safeguard to keep us from sort of overlapping ourselves in potential scenarios. So I'm going to go ahead and merge this in, and this should be available as soon as this video comes out, and you guys can go ahead and just merge this into your code, and you should be good to go. So with that, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next full episode of Kohi. Thanks. Bye.